Stay on the line. Lefty Chapter 20. Sergeant Harris sat on the front porch smoking a cigarette while the team collected evidence. Nosy neighbors across the street huddled up talking about all the police cars on the block. Sergeant Harris recognized one of the neighbors, Antonio Dillon, a.k.a. Lefty. He was Sergeant Harris's teammate when he played AAU basketball. Sergeant Harris flicked his cigarette out through the yard still lit, then headed towards the talking neighbors. A couple of neighbors walked off when they saw him coming their way. "Damn," said Lefty once he saw that it was Sergeant Harris. "What's good, Lefty?" Sergeant Harris said, as he looked at the other three neighbors he was standing with. "Nothing. Just minding my business, Tony." Lefty rubbed his neck with his hand. Sergeant Harris hadn't seen Lefty in years. He'd heard that Lefty got strung out on crack and painkillers. By the way, Lefty kept rubbing his hands together. He knew it was true. The other neighbors were elderly, 2 women and a man in a wheelchair. "Does anyone live in that house over there?" Sergeant Harris asked, as he pointed at the house. "No, but they go over there to get high." "I'm so glad that y'all decided to shut that place down. Tracy think that she's doing them a favor by keeping the lights on over there. Trying to keep a few bums off the street. Bless her heart," one of the women said with her hands on the old man's wheelchair handle, bracing herself. "You know Tracy?" "Yes, baby. I know the whole family. They call me Ma Mabel. The entire neighborhood knows Ma Mabel. I've lived in that blue and tan house all the days of my life." Ma Mabel pointed at her house. "When's the last time you seen Tracy?" "It was the 4th of July. Yup, she came to my house. We talked for an hour about how nasty they had the basement. She took some water and food over there. She usually brings them things every so often. You know, blankets and toiletry supplies. She has a heart of gold, and this guy keeps using her instead of getting his act together. A man that doesn't work, doesn't eat." Ma Mabel said as she looked at Lefty. All Lefty could do was put his head down. "You be over there?" The question was direct toward Lefty. "Be over there?" "Tracy keeps that place just for her sorry cousin and his junkie buddies," said Ma Mabel. Lefty looked at Ma Mabel with an evil stare. Ma Mabel and the other 2 neighbors went down the street to her house. "You need to start talking, Lefty, before things get ugly for you." Sergeant Harris stared at Lefty with a serious face. "Tracy's my cousin, but that's my mama house. My mama left it to Tracy because she's responsible. My mama told Tracy to look out for me on her deathbed. That's why Tracy keeps the lights and water on for me. Like Ma Mabel said, Tracy makes sure I have more than I need. Don't get it twisted. I have a right to be in that house," Lefty said, while scratching his left arm with his right hand. "When's the last time you seen or heard from her?" "I saw her on the 4th of July like Ma Mabel said. Tracy dropped off a few things and cursed me out at the same time. One of my guests picked the lock and went upstairs. She could have torn my head off. She was really upset with me. Our agreement is that I stay in the basement and clean up after myself. I talked to her once after that. It was either Saturday or Sunday after the 4th. I could tell you for sure, but my phone dead. Since then, she hasn't returned any of my calls." "You never been upstairs in the living room?" Sergeant Harris watched to see how Lefty replied. "Of course, I've been in every inch of this house. Tracy usually has a group outreach meeting in the living room. I attended a few times to get the special goodies she hands out. Don't get me wrong, she would have some good things to say, but I've been hearing that for years. I realized I ain't shit a long time ago. She just refused to give up on me." He kept fidgeting. As Lefty was talking, Sergeant Harris saw Detective Bickerstaff walk to the front yard of the house. Sergeant Harris waved Detective Bickerstaff over to where he and Lefty were standing. Detective Bickerstaff walked across the street just in time to hear Lefty finish. "Lefty, I want you to meet Captain Bickerstaff, the lead detective." "Nice to meet you," Detective Bickerstaff said as he tried to shake Lefty's hand. Lefty nodded his head but refused to shake his hand. "I need you to go down to the station with my captain. He will ask you a few questions about Tracy and some things we found in the house. Whatever you found in the house ain't my shit. I promise you that. Fuck that, Lefty said as he bit the sides of his jaws. Did y'all have a warrant? Lefty asked as he looked at them for a response. Detective Bickerstaff pulled a folded-up paper out his back pocket. Sergeant Harris looked at Lefty, implying, "What are you going to do now?" "Okay, I'm only going to answer some questions. I'm not arrested, right, Tony?" "No, you're not arrested, but you need to be totally honest. If we find out you're lying about anything, I will find a cell with your name on it. Believe that." Cool, Lefty said with a sigh of relief. Sergeant Harris walked Lefty to Detective Bickerstaff's car. He opened the back door, and Lefty got in the car. After he closed the door, Sergeant Harris and Detective Bickerstaff walked towards each other. "I got nervous when Lefty asked you for the warrant. I'm glad you had it in your back pocket." Sergeant Harris tapped a cigarette on the cigarette box. "That wasn't the warrant. That was my grocery list. I printed it out last night. Luckily, he didn't ask to read the warrant, or he would have found out I drink a lot of V8. You're coming around, Captain, at a snail's pace, but Charlotte's starting to wear on you." Sergeant Harris smiled. Detective Bickerstaff smiled as he walked to the front of the car. Lefty started tapping the window and pointing at Sergeant Harris. "I think Lefty wants you, Sergeant." "You think?" Sergeant Harris said sarcastically as he walked to Lefty. "What is it? Can I bum a few stogies off you to calm my nerves?" Sergeant Harris handed Lefty his whole pack of cigarettes. "You can't smoke in the car, but you can when you get to the station." Lefty's nod implied he understood. "Before you go, let me show you something." Sergeant Harris scrolled through his phone and stopped at the picture from the living room in the house. He used his fingers to make the image of the darts on the floor bigger. Why would all these darts be on the living room floor? I don't know. I never saw them before. Maybe Tracy was donating some games at one of her nonprofit situations. You got me? Lefty was confused. Sergeant Harris shut the car door. Ding. Detective Bickerstaff looked at his phone. "The warrant is finally in the trunk. As soon as the team finishes, meet me at the station." 10-4, Sergeant Harris replied. Detective Bickerstaff drove off with Sergeant Harris standing in the street. Sergeant Harris reached in his front pocket and pulled out his lighter. He lit his cigarette with the lighter and pulled on it hard. The cigarette burned, but he wasn't getting any smoke. He stopped trying to pull, then looked at the cigarette. "Fuck!" Sergeant Harris shouted as he threw the cigarette to the ground. The cigarette was broken. Stay on the line. Mr. X, Chapter 21. You back listening to the station that's blazing the nation. 96.9 FM Iron Sharpens Iron Morning Show. With yours truly, the infamous Lifeline, and my partner in crime, the lovely Pretty Pearl. Today's show has been really inspiring. Our special guest, Mr. X, the author, social activist, mentor, philanthropist, I can go on and on. This brother has a passion for bettering the world, not just his own community. I'm honored that you decided to come to the studio rather than do your interview over the phone. We thank you, Steve said to Mr. X. No need to thank me. It's my pleasure. Charlotte, I don't know if y'all understand, but Lifeline is a man of the people. Even before we were formally introduced, we happened to start talking at this nonprofit workshop. We bounced ideas off each other just in general conversation. Needless to say, that 15-minute break started a true friendship. He's truly a man after my own heart, Mr. EX said as he bowed his head and hands. He's being modest. He said a friendship, I'll say I gained a mentor. You've been a blessing to my family and me. My twins always ask about you whenever they call. The little time they've been in your presence was very impressionable. I appreciate you, much love. Steve fist bumped his heart twice. Before I get sidetracked, I have a few questions to ask you before you go. This first question comes from Twitter. Who inspired you growing up? Martin Luther King and Malcolm X laid the foundation in which I've been building on. I am so thankful for these two brothers' contributions to the world. By saying that, I glorify the people who gave me all the books of these two icons. My grandparents inspire me still to this day. Dr. Devon and Dr. Shelia Watson are educators and crusaders. They've dedicated their lives to teaching and challenging the youth. I remember as a child, my granddad would ask me, "Did you learn something today?" My granddad opened my third eye before I had my 7th birthday. Book after book, story after story. My grandmother told stories that would have you on the end of your seat. They sparked an interest in me that still burns today. Just think, when I turned 7 years old, I received more books than toys for my birthday, and I took all my birthday money to the bookstores. Even in their 90s, they're still my heroes. Wow. You almost had me in tears thinking about my grandparents, Pretty Pearl said as she looked at her notes. The question I have from our website says, when a person has it in their heart to help others, but isn't financially able to help currently, what kind of advice would you have for them? Pretty Pearl asked Mr. X. Don't quit your day job. Meaning, never stop preparing your own table before you start working on somebody else's table. Even a hungry rescue dog will eventually need to be saved and fed. Let that marinate. Mr. X paused briefly. Plan, plan, plan. Research, research, research. Once you know what you want to do and how you want to do it, you're on your way. Start small with the aspiration of tremendous growth. From volunteering to moonlighting, after work, dedicate some time to do what's on your heart. Reach out to an organization that's giving the type of help you agree with. The main thing is starting what's truly on your heart. I'm a testimony of aligning my purpose and passion. Once I got that understanding, prosperity surely followed. I had to be patient, but it worked out. Passion, purpose, and prosperity. If that didn't help you enough, email me, and I will assist you the best I can. www.mrxreal.org, Mr. X said as he watched MK3 showing how much time was left. Thank you, Mr. X, for your knowledge and wisdom. It's always a pleasure. Until next time. Much love, Steve said as he double fist punched his heart. Anytime, Mr. X replied. After we pay some bills, we will be back with 20 minutes of continuous hits. From the station that's rockin' the nation, 96.9 FM. Steve sounded off. The off-the-air sign. Lights up. I'm so proud of you. Your show has really grown. Now I need those books so you can reach a different audience. Mr. X said to Steve with his head tilted waiting for a response. I'm working on it and not like before. I've actually started 2 books. I didn't want to tell you until I got in a groove. I needed to feel comfortable. Writing has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've read many books, but writing one gave me a newfound respect for authors. Be patient, it's coming. That's great. Let me go. I have a book signing at JCSU in an hour and at UNCC at 5 p.m. Mr. X gathered his things. You're not getting away that easy. I'm walking you to your car. I need to pick your brain, Pretty Pearl said as she helped him with his briefcase. Mr. X looked at Steve. Steve smiled back at him as he shrugged his shoulders. Stay on the line. Picture this chapter 22. Lefty had been sitting in the interrogation room for nearly 2 hours, from sitting to standing to pacing the entire room. He tried to look through the glass but couldn't see anyone. Sitting in the chair beating the table with his hands, Lefty finally started to lose it. What the fuck? I need to go to the bathroom! Lefty screamed at the top of his lungs. Detective Bickerstaff watched him from the other room. Sergeant Harris walked in the room and looked at Lefty through the glass. Why is he still here? I didn't want to deal with him without you being here. Plus, I wanted enough time to read his body language. Detective Bickerstaff tapped his clipboard with his pen. I'm surprised he didn't start tearing the interrogation room up. You know how those junkies are. He didn't tear it up, but I had to get several officers to take him to the smoking area. I wish you never gave him those cigarettes. I'm going in with him. Make sure you listen closely." Detective Bickerstaff went out and closed the door. He stood outside the interrogation room door with the officer babysitting Lefty. He stretched for a second, then opened the door. "Sorry it took me so long, but my team called me with a few alarming things they found at the house. Not saying that you had anything to do with it, but it's not looking good for anyone. Before I continue, I need you to be very honest before we charge you for the things we found at the house. Do you understand, Mr. Dillon?" Detective Bickerstaff asked Lefty. "Where the fuck is Tony? Is he coming back?" Lefty asked Detective Bickerstaff, looking spooked. Detective Bickerstaff didn't answer. He pulled his phone out his pocket and looked at it. "Excuse me, I have to make a phone call," said Detective Bickerstaff. Detective Bickerstaff walked into the hallway. Sergeant Harris peeped into the hallway to see if he was on his phone. Detective Bickerstaff was standing next to the officer outside the door stalling. Sergeant Harris stepped back into the room and watched Lefty through the glass. 3 minutes later, Detective Bickerstaff walked back into the interrogation room. "What's your relationship with Tracy Dillon?" Detective Bickerstaff asked. "I already told Tony. I'm not going to keep repeating myself." "Where is Tony?" Lefty asked Detective Bickerstaff once again. "Sergeant Harris is on his way to the station. They found a body at the house. They also recovered your fingerprints and some of your belongings. It would behoove you to answer the question before we start reading you your rights. What's your relationship with Tracy?" Lefty covered his face with his hands, then took a deep breath. He exhaled through the hand that covered his mouth. He moved his hands to the top of his head and started to rub it. "Like I told Tony, my mama and Tracy's mama were sisters. Tracy's my first cousin," Lefty said with teary eyes sounding pathetic. "Is that your mother's home?" Detective Bickerstaff wrote Lefty responses in his notes on his clipboard. "Yes." "Do you live there with Tracy?" "I live there. Tracy stays there every once in a while. My mama told Tracy to look out for me on her deathbed. So Tracy keeps the lights and water on for me. I guess Tracy didn't care about your mother's wishes since there's no running water in the house. Or she," Detective Bickerstaff was saying before Lefty stopped him. "Hold up, brah. You don't know Tracy or my mama. Watch your mouth. I don't give a fuck about no badge when it comes to my family." Lefty stared the detective in his eyes. "I apologize. I had no right to assume Tracy's position on your mother wishes. Forgive me," Detective Bickerstaff said in a sincere tone. "Does Tracy usually keep the utilities without interruption?" Lefty didn't answer right away. He looked at the detective, then looked away. "Yes, she does. You know some black folks do pay their bill." "Fucking asshole," Lefty mumbled under his breath. "I'm not trying to be smart, but some of the things we found at the house raised a few eyebrows. Look at this picture." He handed Lefty the picture off his clipboard. "That bucket in the corner indicates that someone has been using it as a toilet for a while." Detective Bickerstaff watched Lefty's reaction. Lefty looked at the picture and smiled with a little chuckle. "What do you find funny? First of all, that's my bucket. A matter of fact, it's Travis' bucket from down the street. I borrowed it from Travis when Tracy stopped answering my calls. I knew she was mad at me for having the place a mess, but she never went this long without returning my calls. I'm smiling because I want to know why y'all took the bucket upstairs to take a picture. I know it had to stink like hell." Lefty grinned. "We didn't move it. That's how we found it." "Well, that's not where I left it. I put that on everything. That bucket was downstairs in my area. Somebody had to break into the house because me and Tracy are the only ones with keys. Plus, I know she didn't move it. She got the weakest stomach I ever saw. She will throw up if she smells throw up for real." Lefty handed the picture back to the detective. "You're trying to tell me that someone moved your bucket. Why would they do that?" The detective shuffled through his stack of pictures. "I don't know. That's your job. All I can say is what I know. And believe me, that bucket wasn't upstairs. Tracy already blew me out for letting one of my guests go upstairs. I try my hardest not to bite the hand that feeds me for the most part. And that bucket is a no-brainer. Lefty shrugged his shoulders. Why didn't she want you upstairs? I could go up there, but only when she's there. She's a little OCD when it comes to cleaning. Not to the point that she's cleaning all the time, but she's definitely not cleaning behind no grown person. You better believe that. I'm trying to believe you, but... The detective paused from what he was saying. Just look at the pictures that we took. This time he handed Lefty a stack of pictures. Lefty flipped through the pictures twice over. Some pictures he smiled, and others he looked very confused. I don't get any of these pictures. Sometimes Tracy will let the place get a little messy, but never like that. Plus, some of those food containers are from the cookout and other fast food places. Tracy don't eat meat. She's a little uppity, trying to be healthy. These pictures with the flyers on the ceiling, I know for a fact she didn't do that. Don't get me wrong, she hates Hot 96.9 with a passion, but not to that level, and especially not in the open for someone to see. She's the diva type. She got too much pride for that. So, whatever you trying to tie her into, this not even in her nature. You're way off. Lefty kept flipping through the pictures. Detective Bickerstaff walked out of the interrogation room. He walked to the water fountain with a spacey look on his face. He held the button on the water fountain, but he wasn't drinking. Sergeant Harris walked right up next to him, and Detective Bickerstaff was in a daze. "Captain, are you okay?" Sergeant Harris asked. Detective Bickerstaff jumped and dropped his clipboard. They both bent down to pick up the notes and pictures. As they stood up, Detective Bickerstaff held one picture separated from the others. This picture. This is the second time I dropped these pictures, and this picture keeps standing out to me. What do you see when you look at this picture? Detective Bickerstaff asked Sergeant Harris. Sergeant Harris took the picture from Detective Bickerstaff. He studied the picture thoroughly. The picture was taken of the bathroom. There was Comet cleaner poured all over the place. On the floor, shower, toilet, and sink. It looks like Tracy was about to clean up, but got sidetracked or detained. Tracy could have been abducted from the house before she finished cleaning the bathroom. Or maybe she got a call that made her run off. All that we know is Tracy didn't finish cleaning the bathroom. Why she didn't finish? That's hard to tell. Sergeant Harris handed the picture back to Detective Bickerstaff. That's what I got from the picture. Detective Bickerstaff paused while shaking the picture in his hand. If Lefty's telling the truth, which I feel he is, who's doing the staging? And is the bathroom part of the staging or simply an unfinished job? This case doesn't have a dull moment. You can say that again. I think Lefty's telling the truth too. So, if you don't have any more questions for him, I will have one of the officers take him home. Yeah, let him go. I believe he gave us all he has, plus I don't think he would harm Tracy. Even with his addiction, he's still protective of his family. From your notes, I have the time in which he last had contact with her. Now we need to find out when was the last time the light bill was paid and what type of payment was made. We need to narrow the time frame for when Tracy dropped off the grid. Get Sergeant Lyons to help you with that. Detective Bickerstaff walked to his office. Sergeant Harris went into the interrogation room to get Lefty. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can be used against you. Lefty interrupted Sergeant Harris from reading him his rights. Nah, man, I ain't do shit, Tony. Lefty jumped out his seat. I'm just fucking with you. You're free to go. The officer outside will drop you off wherever you want to go. Take care of yourself. Sergeant Harris handed Lefty his card. You ain't right. Almost gave me a heart attack. You play too much, Tony, Lefty said as he walked out of the room. He didn't take the card. Detective Bickerstaff sat at his desk, reading over the notes from the team. He was still having a hard time with that one picture of the bathroom. Susan from the lab walked into his office with a folder. Captain, I have a fingerprint match from the house, Susan said as she passed Detective Bickerstaff the folder. Ricky Stone, Detective Bickerstaff said aloud as he read the name of the fold. You know him? Susan asked. Not personally. He's one of the suspects from this case, the only one that had a tight alibi. Now it's time to shake this tree and see what falls. Stay on the line. On the Range, Chapter 23. I see you found the one you like, Mr. Williams. Do you want a test drive? The salesman asked him. Not at all. I want the white one off the showroom floor with 0 miles, Steve said as he looked in the trunk of the Range Rover Sport on the lot. Bernard, get Mr. Williams the white Range off the showroom floor with a dealer tag. Also, get him an accessories gift bag, said the salesman. Mr. Williams, we will finish the paperwork this weekend. My boss said to take care of you. If you need anything, let me know. Thanks. And tell him I will return the favor on the station, he replied as they shook hands. This purchase is stamping my retirement in a big way. Steve took a picture, then he sent it to his wife. Ding, she texted him back. Stephanie, are you thinking about getting that? Steve, it's already done. I'm waiting on them to slap on the dealer tag. She sent him a shaking my head emoji. Bernard brought him the keys, and he was on his way, feeling like $1 million, finally out that rental. As he was sitting at the light on Independence BLVD, just leaving the Land Rover dealership, a white BMW X5 pulled up next to him, the same one he had. He laughed at it like you do your ex when you see her out looking bad. He pulled off and headed to his nephew's house, back at the police department. So, after I chased this guy for 3 minutes on foot through the mall, I cornered him in the parking deck. I pointed my gun at him as I instructed him to get on the ground. Mind you, I'm winded, blowing hard. I cuffed him while he laid on his stomach. Then I picked him up by the cuff and asked, "Did you really think you were going to get away?" He didn't say anything. I turned him around to face me, and the jerk vomited all over my shoes. Fucking beans and Franks all over my hush puppies. True story, Sergeant Jenkins said to the officers in the lounge. The officers laughed at Sergeant Jenkins's story. Break it up, guys. I need to stop Mark Twain from telling his stories. Sergeant Jenkins, I need you and Sergeant Baker to go with me to serve this search warrant. Go get Sergeant Baker and meet me in the parking lot. We're taking the Blue Tahoe, Detective Bickerstaff said to Sergeant Jenkins. We'll be right there, Captain. Sergeant Jenkins sounded off trying to be funny. Detective Bickerstaff started heading to the parking lot, holding the Rick Stone folder. He stopped back in his office, on his way to the parking lot to grab his clipboard, still picking his brain with the picture of the bathroom. He got in the truck and started the engine. He started getting impatient, looking in his rear view, trying to see if he could see them coming. He pulled the picture out of his notes and studied it once more. Sergeant Jenkins opened the front passenger door, got in and closed it. What you got there, Captain? Sergeant Jenkins asked, referring to the picture. It's a picture of the bathroom we took at Tracy Dillion's property. I believe we are missing something. I can feel it in my gut. Take a look at this picture and read the notes in this clipboard. Detective Bickerstaff gave Sergeant Jenkins the pictures and clipboard. Sergeant Baker opened the back door, then got in behind Sergeant Jenkins. When Sergeant Baker was putting on his seatbelt, he noticed the notes Sergeant Jenkins were looking through. Sorry I held you up, but those burritos I got from that food truck are running through me. What you got for me, Captain? Sergeant Baker asked as he tried to peek at the picture in Sergeant Jenkins's hand. Here's Rick Stone's folder. Have at it. Detective Bickerstaff tossed the folder in the back seat. Detective Bickerstaff pulled off heading to Rick Stone's residence. Detective Bickerstaff watched them both going nose deep in the assignments he gave them. He gave Sergeant Jenkins the bulk of the load, hoping he will keep his mouth closed most of the ride. Sergeant Baker and Sergeant Jenkins are the puppies on the team. Baker, 26 years old. Jenkins, 27. Close in age, but cut from 2 different cloths. Sergeant Jenkins has epic stories. He demands attention wherever he goes. People gravitate to him. Sergeant Baker is the opposite. He's not going to say much. Some would overlook him, even if he's been there the whole night. They both love their profession and want to be the best detectives they can be. Detective Bickerstaff likes working with them. They inspire his hunger all over again. On the other side of town, honk, honk, honk. Steve was waiting outside his nephew's house blowing the horn. Honk, honk. Someone peeked through the shade, then the door opened. Beast, his overgrown Rottweiler, ran out to the sidewalk. Slim came out behind him. Beast stood on his hind legs trying to jump in the passenger window he had rolled down. "Yo, get your fucking dog. Down, Beast, down," Slim yelled, but Beast didn't respond. Slim grabbed Beast by the collar and took him back in the house. He closed the door, then walked back to the car. "Sorry, Unc. He usually listens to me," Slim said as he opened the passenger door. When does he listen to you? The funny thing, you name him Beast, and you think he's going to be obedient. You should have called him Clarence. I can see Clarence listening, not that idiot. You better hope he didn't mess up my car." He looked at Slim with a frown. "He didn't fuck up the whip. I see you shining. Even Ray Charles can see you shining." Slim said, using a line from the movie, Paid in Full. "How much did this set you back?" "If you ain't chipping in, you don't need to know." "Word. I dig that. If Stephanie was tripping when you got the X5, I know she gon' have a heart attack when she sees how clean this bitch is." "Word." Slim looked in the back seats. "This real nice, Unc. I feel like I owe you some pussy just for letting me sit in here. I hear you, but on a serious note. The past couple of months, a lot of things have been going down, to the point that the cops are involved. To make a long story short, without going into the details, if something happens to me, I need you to look after the twins for me. My lawyer should reach out to you once they go over my will. Just promise, nephew, that you will take this seriously, all jokes aside." He looked at Slim without blinking. "No doubt, I got you. Truth be told, I really don't like you not telling me the details. You not giving me a chance to help you right now, but I'm going to respect your wishes." Slim was concerned. "Cool. I knew I could count on you. Let me get out of here. I have a few errands to run. Peace. And don't slam the door." Steve stepped on the gas to let Slim hear the engine. Slim gave him dap, closed the car door, and walked back in the house. As Steve drove away, he remembered he didn't tell Slim not to tell Aunt Rachel. He really can't hold water. That's why he couldn't tell him the details. Slim means well. He's Steve's go-to family member. "Hey Siri, call Fox." Ring, ring. "Peace." "What it do?" Fox answered his phone. "Chillin', on my way to the shop. I need some of that Jamaican food in your business park, and I need to show you something." "Cool. I will be back to the shop before you get there. I'm down the street checking my P.O. box." "Cool, peace," she said, then ended the call. On the other side of town, Detective Bickerstaff and the puppies are sitting in the car outside of Rick Stone's building. Rick's internet radio show starts in 30 minutes. He broadcasts it from his apartment. Just a matter of time before he pulls up. "Captain, read these notes and look at this picture. It seems like Tracy was interrupted from cleaning the bathroom." That was my first thought. But when I read Antonio Dillon's interrogation notes, it got me thinking outside the box. Tracy's neat, responsible. That's what I'm getting from Antonio's notes. Therefore, something had to be really important to stop her from finishing, or held her up from not getting back to it. If I went on the notion that someone's staging this, why would they go to the extent of the bathroom? What if they left something in the bathroom that could give up their identity? Then, when they tried to clean up their mess, there wasn't any water. I know it seems far-fetched, but the pieces to this puzzle are not matching. "It's just a theory, Captain," Sergeant Jenkins said, still looking through the files. "Not as far-fetched as you think. When you were speaking, I could almost visualize it. That bathroom is a priority after we serve Rick Stone," Detective Bickerstaff said. "He's pulling up now. False alarm, Captain. That's not the tag we have on file." Sergeant Baker pointed in the notes. A Hispanic woman got out the gold Camry. "I have a lot of red flags now that I've read Rick Stone's file. It's not matching up with the case that we have to this point. The killer is very methodical and violent. This case almost reminds me of the movie The Bone Collector. It stars Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie. The killer in the movie toyed Denzel with clues that if he figured out quick, he might have saved a life. In other words, this can't be our guy. He doesn't match the profile unless he's playing us, Sergeant Baker said. What makes you say that? Detective Bickerstaff asked with his eyebrow raised. Just think, Captain. Every time we get some concrete evidence, the bottom falls out. 2 sets of fingers, 1 body. Now, Rick Stone's fingerprints on a food container and on one of the darts. Rick could be slipping, but chances are not in our favor. It's good to follow the breadcrumbs, Sergeant Baker was saying. Hold up, there goes Rick, Detective Bickerstaff said as he interrupted Sergeant Baker. They watched Rick get out his car and walk to his apartment building. They waited 10 minutes, then headed up to his apartment. Bang, bang, bang. Detective Baker knocked on the door. Who is it? Rick asked without opening the door. It's Detective Bickerstaff. I have a search warrant. Open the door, Mr. Stone. Detective Bickerstaff held his badge up to the peephole. Rick opened the door, and Detective Bickerstaff gave him the search warrant as they walked in. Rick closed the door, then started reading the warrant. The small detail started to search the place. Rick tried to do his internet show, but was too distracted. He decided to play back an old show. He dialed his lawyer, but didn't get an answer. Rick sent to him a text. Lawyer. Detective Bickerstaff and his flunkies served me a search warrant. Call me immediately. I left my attorney a message about this bogus search warrant, Rick yelled through his apartment. Bogus? I love your word choice. Let me educate you a little. Warrants come after we have some physical evidence. Kind of like the motive, then the crime or the crimes, then the arrest. It doesn't get any clearer than that, Detective Bickerstaff said in a sarcastic tone. Really? Evidence? Okay, do what you do. Just don't tear up my place, Rick said as he sat in his recliner chair. He laid back in it, to the point that it looked like he was lying in a bed. In a matter of moments, Rick was snoring. Detective Bickerstaff, though, that was rare. Either he was extremely tired or very relaxed. How can he afford this place on his salary at the shelter? Even that crappy show and his blog are not bringing in this type of money. Sergeant Jenkins said to Sergeant Baker. His file said he comes from money. He might look like a poor man's J. Cole, but his parents are paid. He could be living better than the soulless Ballantyne. Trust me, said Sergeant Baker. On the other side of town, Steve ate his Jamaican food and still no fox. As he walked out of the restaurant, he saw one of his old neighbors. He didn't see Steve as he was going through the trash can. He remembered when he first got married, before the twins. They used to bust down a bottle of Grey Goose together. They chopped it up many times about so many things. Sports, religion, whatever came to mind. Dee, Steve shouted across the parking lot. He walked toward Dee, and Fox pulled up. Derek, he shouted. Derek, a.k.a. Dee, turned around. Say word. My guy, lifeline in the building, Derek said as he dapped him up. He spoke slowly like he was going in slow motion. He smelled like he hadn't bathed in years. Steve looked up to see Fox making the motion to kill that, hand across the neck. Then Fox went into the shop. I wouldn't say the building, but I'm out here. How's your wife and kids? You trying to be funny, motherfucker? Dee said very aggressively and loud. Whoa, tough guy. I don't know what triggered that, but let me go into the barber shop. My bad, Steve said with my hands up, backing off. He tried to defuse that as soon as possible. Dee has a violent side. He's too thin to win at this point, but Steve refused to be wrestling with him smelling like that. You don't know? Know what? My wife and kids died in a fire. I came home one night from Champagne, the strip club on Atondo, hungry as fuck. I saw a pizza box on the counter in the kitchen. I turned on the stove, then I walked outside to the car to get my cigarettes. I sat in the car and lit my cigarette. Before I knew it, 2 cop cars pulled up on me. They asked me for my ID. Someone called in a complaint. I told them I live right here. I just came outside for a cigarette. One thing led to another. I broke one cop's jaw. Need I say more? When I got released, I came home to no family. The fire department told me that there was a whole box of pizza in the oven. I broke down in tears. My baby always put away food for me because my boys would eat up everything. It will be 8 years in January, Dee said with glassy eyes. Damn, sorry to hear that. I couldn't even... What do you need from me, brother? Can I help in any way? No, I appreciate your concern, but I'm good. I deserve this black cloud that surrounds me. Until I'm back with my family, there's nothing anyone can do to help me. I understand. Just take my card. If you want to make your situation better, I have a lot of resources at the station, from psychiatrists to employment opportunities. Hold your head and stay in touch. He took the card from him. As Steve watched Dee walk away, he felt small. Thinking about his kids and his wife, his boys would come over and stay the whole day with his twins. God really knows how to bring you back to earth. He felt like $1 million when he left the dealership. Truly not realizing his family is what made him the wealthiest man alive. He stood outside the barbershop in a daze. Yo, snap out of it. You can't save the world lifeline? Dee is gone. He went from being the shit to smelling like shit. Word, Fox said as he tried to give Steve dap. You stupid. That man lost it all, he said to Fox as he left him hanging. You right. His mind, his dignity, and his sense of keeping himself properly groomed. Yeah, he lost everything. Fox shook his head watching Dee walk down the block. Anyway, I picked up a new whip. 2017. That new Range Rover Sport. Not too flashy, but definitely classy. He unlocked it with the keypad. Fox got in and he took him for a ride. Back on the other side of town. Bingo, in here, Captain? Sergeant Baker yelled from the master bedroom. He yelled so loud he woke up Rick from his nap. Detective Bickerstaff walked in the bedroom, but he didn't see Sergeant Baker. He walked to the bathroom. No one. Then noticed there was another door in the bathroom that led to a closet. The closet is where he found Sergeant Baker sitting on the floor, Indian style, holding a laptop. What you find? Detective Bickerstaff asked. I found this laptop hidden between some towels. That seemed funny to me, so I played with it until I got in. Lo and behold, this guy has child porn all through his computer, Sergeant Baker said as he showed the captain the screen. Bingo, we got him. They walked into the living room where Rick was sitting on the recliner, going through his phone. Is this your computer? Sergeant Baker asked as he sat the laptop on the kitchen island. Yes. Where'd you find that? I thought it was stolen. You might want to call your lawyer, Detective Bickerstaff said. Why? Rick had a baffled look on his face. The amount of child porn found on your laptop could possibly give you a few years behind bars, Detective Bickerstaff said. Hold up. I am the wrong person you should be trying to set up. My parents will buy the police department just to fire you. You really don't know what you're doing. Trust me, that is not my doing. Rick dialed his attorney on his cell phone. We have better things to do than set you up, Detective Bickerstaff said as he walked around Rick in a circle, rubbing his hands. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you're telling the truth. Whenever your legal team proves your innocence, you will be lucky to have a life, no less an image. Also, the partial custody of your daughter will go bye-bye. Not saying that's what we are trying to do, but this crap on your laptop can't be ignored. Detective Bickerstaff waits for Rick's response. Before he could, his phone rang. Hello, Marty. I have Detective Bickerstaff and his associates here trying to frame me. They are acting... Marty Shays stopped him. Don't say another word. Let me speak to the lead detective, Marty said to Rick. Rick passed his cell phone to Detective Bickerstaff. "Hello?" Detective Bickerstaff answered the phone. "This is Marty Shays, attorney for Mr. Stone, that is Theodore Stone. You might know the political figures from South Carolina. In other words, a man with great connections. If my client isn't under arrest, please leave his apartment." "He's not under arrest yet, but—" Detective Bickerstaff stopped in his tracks as he saw Sergeant Baker waving to get his attention. "Hold on for a second." Then gave the phone to Rick. Detective Bickerstaff walked over to Sergeant Baker. They talked too low for Rick to hear them. "What is the detective doing now?" Marty asked Rick over the phone. "I can't tell. It seems that he's looking at something on my laptop. They said they found child pornography on it." Rick replied to Marty. "That's not anything to play with. I'm coming to you." "Stay on the line until the detective finishes talking. This is not good. Your father's 2024 campaign for President of the United States will be compromised. This is not good," Marty said once again. Detective Bickerstaff walked to Rick and took the phone. "Marty, are you still there?" Detective Bickerstaff asked. "Yes, I'm here and I'm driving to you. I will be there in 15 minutes, Marty said as he shifted through traffic. "Great. See you when you get here." Detective Bickerstaff ended the call. He put the phone in his pocket. "You need to sit down, Mr. Stone. The only reason I haven't locked you up already is your father. Not because of his position and wealth, but I had the pleasure of meeting him. He's a very genuine man, built on morals. So sit. Don't say a word until your lawyer gets here." Stay on the line. Clueless, Chapter 24. Stone's attorney was taking a little longer than anticipated. Detective Bickerstaff sat quietly on the sofa, while Rick reclined in the recliner. Rick kept looking at the clock on the wall every couple of minutes. Sergeant Baker and Sergeant Jenkins sat at the dining room table. Could you imagine living in this apartment? I wouldn't want to leave here. Who needs to go to a bar when you have a bar at home? Who did the decorations, Versace? Sergeant Jenkins said, as he marveled over the place. Rick's place is only a 2-bedroom, but very spacious. Each bedroom had a connecting bathroom. It is well designed, Greek with a splash of contemporary. Some of the figures and statues around his place look like ancient gods. Just think, he's not much older than us, said Sergeant Baker. Bing. The doorbell rang. Marty was at the door. Rick got up and let him in. Who's the lead detective? Marty insisted before Rick could shut the door. I am. I'm Detective Bickerstaff, and in the dining room, Detective Baker and Detective Jenkins. It's 2 ways we can do this, at the station or here. I have a lot of questions that your client needs to provide answers to. How you want to do this? Here, but before you ask Mr. Stone any questions, I have one. My client informed me about some filth that was allegedly found on his laptop. I need to know all of the parameters of that claim, Marty said as he sat down on the sofa. He opened his briefcase, pulled out a notepad and pen. Looking through Mr. Stone's laptop, I found several illegal downloads. Child porn to aggressive child porn rapes. Your client mentioned that we could have planted this on here, but his history says differently. He has a private search history that I found with the dates he downloaded these files, Sergeant Baker said. Let me talk to my client in private, then you can ask your questions, Marty said. Then he and Rick went into the kitchen. Sergeant Baker and Sergeant Jenkins walked in the living room with Detective Bickerstaff. You need to teach me about that private history. My lady always finds things on my laptop to fuss about, Sergeant Jenkins said to Sergeant Baker. Sergeant Baker didn't respond. He shook his head. I don't need to know how that stuff got on your laptop. This is not the type of news that needs to come out connected to your family name. I know Detective Bickerstaff has it out for you, since we haven't complied with his investigation. Therefore, you must answer these questions to the best of your ability. If one of the answers may be incriminating, whisper your answer to me first. If I tap my notepad with my pen once, give them the answer you gave me. If I tap my notepad twice, avoid giving a direct answer. By avoiding, you can say, I'm not too sure, or I don't recall. Once for yes, twice for no. Do you understand? Marty asked Rick, looking him in his eyes. I got it. Also, that's not my stuff on the laptop. I don't judge. That's someone else's job. Let's get this over with. Stay relaxed. They walked back in the living room and sat on the sofa right next to each other. You can start your questions, Marty said to Detective Bickerstaff. On the other side of town, Steve and Fox were sitting in the new Range Rover in the barbershop's parking lot. They were bumping a local artist's CD that Fox bought from a young hustler in front of the shop. The music was horrible. Every time I try to support a local artist, the music be whack. Luckily, I only paid $3. If I would have paid more than that, I would probably be looking for Dude. Word. Fox said as he ejected the CD. I feel you. Ring, ring. Steve looked at his phone. It was his wife. Hey, baby, what's going on? He asked Stephanie. Still at work, but I need you. Hopefully you're not busy. My coworker said my tire is completely flat. I called AAA, but they said it will be 2 to 3 hours. Stephanie sounding all pitiful over the phone. Say no more. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'm at the barbershop chopping it up with Fox. I'll see you in a few. Love you. Thanks. Love you more. Stephanie ended the call. He held the phone smiling. She went from sad to happy in a matter of seconds. Yo, before I go, hear me out on some real talk shit. If something happens to me, God forbid, watch out for my twins. I told Slim the same thing earlier. I think God is telling me to get my house in order on the low. I'm not trying to spook you, just trying to think ahead. I got you, B. We fam, brothers from another mother word. I will do anything I can not to let you down. Steve dapped up Fox, and he got out the car. Fox closed the door, then went back into the barber shop. He sat there for a moment, looking through his text messages. His daughter, Steffi, left him a text. Baby girl, call me ASAP. She must need some money. These new kids are so funny. She'll text me from the same phone that she could have called me from. He laughed to himself. Then he pulled off heading to Stephanie. Back to the questioning. Do you have a problem with Steve Lifeline Williams? Detective Bickerstaff asked Rick. Rick whispered into his attorney Marty's ear. Marty thought on it, then tapped his notepad once. I don't have a problem with him personally. I have a problem with what he represents. Broadcasting, journalism, or any other media outlets that touches the masses. I feel that they are obligated to give people the truth, and he does the opposite. Rick answered the detective. Detective Bickerstaff listened to Rick as he wrote notes. Let me get this straight. Anyone who doesn't give the truth to their audience, you have a problem with them? Definitely. Yes. Rick answered enthusiastically. I sense your passion for your profession, and that's admirable, I must say. Others might even say a little obsessive, depending on what the angle is they're looking from. But who am I to judge? Let's get back to Steve. Is it true that Steve got you kicked out of the Carolina School of Broadcasting? And maybe that's why you have a different type of hate or dislike for him. Could that be true? Rick whispered into Marty's ear once again. This time Rick had a lot to say. Marty squinted his eyes trying to take it all in. Once Rick finished, Marty took a while to make the decision. Marty finally tapped his notepad twice, but was hesitant. That was so long ago. I don't completely remember all the main components that lead me to get kicked out. I was very young at that time and very overzealous. He could have had something to do with that, or maybe not. I was out of control at that time, Rick answered as best he could. It's so amazing how your memory has changed from a year ago. I have emails from a years ago, where you stated, and I quote, "You getting me expelled will not stop me from exposing the fraud that you are." You sent that to radio station's email for Mr. Williams. I have hundreds of emails from you getting at Mr. Williams in various ways. What do you have to say about that? Rick looked to have taken offense to the last question. As I said, I don't remember every little detail. It's possible I might have, but not anymore. Rick said it with an attitude. Marty held up his notepad to allow Rick to read what he wrote. Rick read, "Relax," in big bold letters. Marty put the notepad face down on his lap. Detective Bickerstaff smiled at the way Rick responded. "What about Tracy Dillion? Do you know Tracy Dillion?" "I don't have any type of relationship with her, other than having friends in the same circle. I've probably been in her presence a handful of times," Rick said, more relaxed. "Did you ever speak to her one-on-one? Or meet with her outside of an event? One-on-one?" Rick twisted his mouth as his eyes looked up. He was thinking. Rick whispered into Marty's ear. Marty was overwhelmed hearing the way Rick conducted himself over this matter. Marty tapped his notepad once. "I met with Tracy once after I found out that she had a personal relationship with Steve. We met at a coffee shop in Uptown Charlotte. I tried to get information on Steve to use on my show. No matter how much she hates him, she wouldn't give me anything that would slander the man. I had no other conversation with her besides that one." "You haven't met at any of her places? Her place of business or where she lives?" Detective Bickerstaff already knew the answer. "No. Like I told you, I only met with her once. I know you said you hadn't met any other time. I just had to make sure. Excuse me for a second." The detective walked into the dining room and grabbed Rick's folder. He opened it and started reading as he walked back into the living room. "What's puzzling me is, your fingerprints popped up at Tracy's place several times. We found several food containers from a fast food establishment with your prints on it. Also, we found your prints on 3 darts. Can you explain why your prints would be showing up at a place that you've never been?" Detective Bickerstaff asked, as he passed him a picture of the darts taken at the lab with his prints. He didn't show him the pictures from the crime scene. "I told you, I only met her once, at the coffee shop. You can come up with all this fake evidence to try to frame me, but I'm not going to be your scapegoat," Rick said convincingly as Marty held up his notepad. The notepad said, "You don't have to say anything else." Rick read the note but refused to listen. "No, I'm going to keep talking. First, they come to my place disturbing me from my show. Then they tried to hit me with these outlandish accusations. Enough is enough." Rick stared at Detective Bickerstaff with the evil eye. "I had no idea that you would ask this line of questions. My client and I need to talk in private," Marty said to the detective. "No, we don't. Food containers and darts. That's the most bullshit I ever," Rick started to say until it came to him. "Wow," Rick said as he laughed to himself. Marty and Detective Bickerstaff looked at Rick confused. "Can you have one of your detectives go into my daughter's toy chest? Pull out the electronic dart set," Rick said as he got up and grabbed some papers out his backpack from the coat closet. Rick separated the papers in 3 different stacks. Rick passed Detective Bickerstaff one of the stacks of papers. Detective Bickerstaff started reading the papers, note for note, from all the officers' reports. The paperwork was a police report of a break-in. Rick's apartment was broken into on August 4th. Nothing was stolen, but the place was trashed. Every room in the place except for his daughter's room. Not sure what they were looking for. "What does this have to do with anything?" Detective Bickerstaff asked Rick. Sergeant Baker walked into the living room with the dart game. Sergeant Baker whispered into Detective Bickerstaff's ear, "2 of the darts are missing. The same colors we found. Everything. I've been racking my brain on how those searches got on my computer. Then you say, in so many words, that my cookout containers are at Tracy's place. I know it had to be cookout because that's all I eat, besides cooking for myself. Then the darts. That's the thing that got me to thinking. The files I couldn't answer, the containers are easy to frame. Then I thought hard when I last played darts with my daughter, Angel, close to a month ago. I'm sure if you access the pictures the police took, you will see pictures where they had my trash in the kitchen. I heard one of the officers telling the other they were looking for sensitive identity items." Rick paused as he was talking. "Hand me my phone," Rick said to Detective Bickerstaff. Detective Bickerstaff handed Rick his phone. Rick pressed in his security code, then started scrolling through the phone. When he got to the pictures, he gave the phone back to the detective. Detective Bickerstaff strolled through the picture that Rick took before the police arrived. It was just how Rick said. If you look hard at the trash on the floor in the kitchen, you will see no cookout bags or containers. Someone had to take the containers out my trash. Sergeant Baker pulled Detective Bickerstaff away from Rick and Marty. The search history dates are from August 2nd and 4th. I also have the times when the search was conducted. On the 4th, he couldn't have been here, or he would have interrupted the break-in. I'm not saying he's telling the whole truth, but our evidence is not looking undisputable, Sergeant Baker said as he looked concerned about their evidence. Detective Bickerstaff walked back into the living room. Are we done here? Marty asked the detective. Not quite. Basically, you want me to believe that someone broke into your place to frame you. They stole food containers and 3 darts from your daughter's dart set. Then they broke in your computer, planted child pornography to assassinate your character. Did they file too many exemptions on your taxes? Or drunk texted any of your old girlfriends? I've read some of your articles since we've been on this investigation. With some of your work, I was impressed. Very impressed. But this is your best work. Detective Bickerstaff walked over to the dart game on the dining table. Thanks for the backhanded compliment. Also, call me a liar in my home. Marty stopped Rick before he could get himself in any trouble. We are done. You can search more if you need to, but answering questions is no longer an option. If you had a real case, my client would be in your custody. Until you get a case, don't bother my client. Marty packed up his briefcase. Detective Bickerstaff and his team wrapped up their search. They were out of there in 30 to 40 minutes after Marty shut down the questioning. When they got to the car, Detective Bickerstaff handed the keys to Sergeant Jenkins to drive. They all got in the car. Detective Bickerstaff got in the front with Sergeant Jenkins. Sergeant Baker sat behind Sergeant Jenkins. As they drove down the street, Sergeant Baker noticed Detective Bickerstaff tapping the dashboard with the dart. Captain, when I heard you say 3 darts to Rick, I thought you made a mistake or was trying to trick him. Clearly in the picture there were 2 darts. You're crafty when you want to be captain, Sergeant Baker said with a smirk on his face. You caught that, but you didn't catch when I sent the picture from his phone to my phone. Also, I sent his phone contacts to my email. I did all that and deleted the evidence before I gave him the phone back. I might be old school, but never an old fool. Detective Bickerstaff looked back at Sergeant Baker, shacking the dart. Sergeant Jenkins looked over at Detective Bickerstaff while he was driving. That reminds me of this story, Sergeant Jenkins said as he started telling his story. Why? Detective Bickerstaff said low to himself, trying to tune out Sergeant Jenkins's story. Stay on the line. Eyewitness Chapter 25. Steve was lying in the bed, flipping through Netflix trying to find something to watch. He had already taken his shower and dressed for bed. It's funny that I used to get undressed for bed in my 20s. Now in my late 40s, I get dressed for bed. I might be getting old, but I'm still sexy. He smiled to himself, thinking about how he changed over the years. Stephanie is taking her sweet time in the shower as always. Baby, you want to cry tonight or laugh? He asked, yelling toward the bathroom. Wait until I finish my shower. I can't understand what you're saying, Stephanie yelled out the shower. He clicked on Cheers and started watching. This is one of his favorite shows of all time. It's a special type of comedy, just to his liking. He remembered this episode. It's the one when Diane turned down Sam's wedding proposal. Stephanie walked into the bedroom. She caught him smiling at the jokes before they happened. Sweetheart, what did you say while I was in the shower? Do you want to cry or laugh? Ha, I don't know why I deal with you, she said as she dried off. Whatever. Do you want to watch a love story or comedy? He pressed the home button on the Roku. Search for thrillers. Then we can pick one that we haven't seen. Rhonda, the new intern, was bragging over this new show at the office. It's on the tip of my tongue. Forget it. Just type in thrillers. Maybe I will remember when I see it. She sat on the bed. Steve typed in thrillers and started scrolling through movies. He kept glancing over at her as she rubbed coconut oil all over her body. Secret in Their Eyes. That's the name of the movie. They say it's a good one. He typed in the movie, then read the description. This might be a good one. Plus, Chiwetel Ejiofor in it. That's my dude from American Gangster and Talk to Me. Thank God she picked a good one. She usually picks the worst movies. He pressed start, then paused it, waiting for her to get in the bed. He got up to get snacks for the movie night. They kept all kinds of Dollar Tree snacks in their bedroom closet. He grabbed some goobers and Swedish fish for him, peanut M&Ms and Raisinets for her. He put them on his nightstand, then got back in the bed. You can start the movie now, Stephanie said. She got up and put her coconut oil on the dresser. Then she grabbed a long-sleeve silk pajama shirt, without the bottoms. She crawled in the bed beside him. He started the movie, then passed her the candy. Thanks. She reached over to kiss him. They pecked twice, then the third one led to some tongue. Before he knew it, he was holding her ankles, giving her the business, getting it in with the boxes of candy in the bed with them. Every time they try to have a movie night at home, they never finish the movie. The movie usually watches them no matter if they are sexing or if they fall asleep. On the other side of town, Detective Bickerstaff was at home, looking over his notes from the case. Sipping on a big glass of vodka, sitting at his desk, he grabbed the picture of the cat with the fingers stuck in it. This picture is bizarre. What is the meaning? What is the message the killer is trying to leave? He was talking to himself as he rambled through his thoughts. He got up and paced, holding the pictures. What I do know is that we finally recovered Randy's fingers. Now, if we could find Tracy's body, that would eliminate her as a suspect. Detective Bickerstaff sat back at his desk, staring at the picture of the bathroom in one hand, also staring at the dead cat in the windowsill. The way the killer staged these crime scenes is strange. Why would he have Randy's fingers stuck in the cat? Detective Bickerstaff asked himself. He placed the pictures side by side on his desk. He poured another hefty drink of vodka, then took a big swig. Holding the glass, his eyes shifted left to right, from one picture to the other. He repeated it until he went into a trance. While having an out-of-body experience, he visualized himself as the suspect. He couldn't see the suspect's body, not even the dimensions. His visual was coming from the killer's eye. Walking into the back door, the killer looks downstairs to see if anyone is down there. The killer noticed the basement was empty. He picked the lock to the door that leads into the kitchen. The killer walked into the kitchen, scanning around vigorously. His eyes focused down, looking into this big black duffel bag. He pulled several food containers out the duffel bag, then placed them around the kitchen. The killer walked into the living room, looking at the wall, ceiling, and floor. He stood there for a while, examining the room. He walked back into the kitchen and grabbed the duffel bag. He took the flyers from the duffel bag and tacked them to the ceiling. The killer scattered darts from the duffel bag around the room. He started throwing a dart into the flyers into the ceiling, blinking uncontrollably. The detective's phone was ringing. It startled him out of the trance. He rubbed his eyes. Then he answered his phone. Hello? Captain, I hate to bother you, but I have to run something by you. Sergeant Baker said, sounding like an excited little kid. This better be good since you couldn't wait until tomorrow. Detective Bickerstaff took another swig. I hope so, Captain. I'm here at the station flipping through the crime scene pictures taken at Tracy's place. The picture of the cat kept frightening me. The way the fingers are coming out, the cat reminded me of something. Then it dawned on me. It looked like a caterpillar. I researched the symbolic meaning of a caterpillar. It has to do with the promise of new life indwelling their bodies. Eventually, that caterpillar is going to go into a cocooning stage, after which it will birth into an entirely new creature, a moth or butterfly. I don't know how that pertains to this case, but I believe the killer wants us to figure this out, Captain. You could be right. Looking at the picture, now that you have explained it, I see a caterpillar as well. Okay, great. I was hoping that someone else would see it. I've been looking at these pictures so long, I was hoping that they weren't starting to play tricks on my mind, Sergeant Baker said with a sigh of relief. Great work. Now I need you to stay put. I will be over there to pick you up, Detective Bickerstaff said as he finished his drink. Where are we going, Captain? Wouldn't you like to know? Just stay put. I'm on my way. Detective Bickerstaff ended the call. Sergeant Baker squeezed his cell phone with his hand, not knowing what he got himself into. On the other side of town. I needed that, Stephanie said, breathing hard, lying on her stomach. Steve walked back from the closet, getting 2 bottles of water from a small refrigerator. He handed Stephanie a bottle as he got back in the bed. When he sat up in the bed, Stephanie rolled over and laid her head on his thigh. They both drank the entire bottle of water. Stephanie put the top back on the bottle, then handed it back to Steve. He tried to put the empty bottles back on his nightstand, but couldn't reach it with Stephanie lying on him. He threw both bottles on the floor on his side of the bed. I meant to thank you earlier for getting my car and taking care of my tire, Stephanie said while leaning her head back, reaching up to rub his shoulders. No problem, baby. Thanks for the tune-up. I needed that. He massaged Stephanie's scalp. Stephanie smiled with her eyes closed. The more he massaged, the more she moaned. He took one of his hands off her head and started feeling around the bed, trying to find the Roku remote. Stephanie rolled over on her left side and grabbed the remote from under her, then passed it to Steve. How you know I wasn't looking for my candy? I know you, man. That wasn't a candy search. Don't turn to sports either. This is movie night. Start the movie over. She got off his lap and sat next to him. I got you, baby. He had a devilish smile on his face. On the other side of town. Detective Bickerstaff pulled up outside Tracy's place off Hoskins Ard. What are we doing here, Captain? Sergeant Baker asked. Detective work? Stakeout? Whatever you want to call it? Hopefully, the killer decides to come back to cover up his tracks. Or we allegedly see someone breaking into the house. Who knows? Stakeouts can get real tricky. Detective Bickerstaff handed Sergeant Baker a folder. Sergeant Baker opened the folder, labeled Tracy Dillion, while looking confused. They sat there for over 30 minutes. Detective Bickerstaff went through almost a half-pack of Big Red gum. He was hoping that Sergeant Baker couldn't smell the vodka on his breath. Did you see that? Detective Bickerstaff asked Sergeant Baker. No, I was reading the notes in this folder. What did you see? Not sure. Opened that glove compartment and passed me the yellow walkie-talkies. Sergeant Baker opened the glove compartment and saw 2 sets of walkie-talkies. He grabbed the yellow set, then handed them to Detective Bickerstaff. Detective Bickerstaff tuned the set to the same channel and checked to see if it worked. 10-4, 10-4, said Detective Bickerstaff into the walkie-talkies. He passed one to Sergeant Baker. Don't change the channel. I need you to be my backup. I'm going to check on the movement I saw on the side of the house. Keep your eyes and ears open. Usually I wouldn't do this with a rookie. Don't let me down. Sergeant Baker nodded. Detective Bickerstaff got out the vehicle, then shut the door. He put the walkie-talkie on his hip. The detective stood by the door for a second, looking in every direction. Finally, he started making his way into the gate of the house. He pulled out his flashlight and gun as he walked to the backyard. Once he made it to the back door, he turned the knob, and it was locked. Bam, bam. Detective Bickerstaff knocked on the door. Is anybody home? Detective Bickerstaff yelled. No response. He grabbed the walkie-talkie and called into Sergeant Baker. The back door's wide open. Going in. Do you copy? Detective Bickerstaff said into the walkie-talkie. Copy that. Be careful, Captain. He held on to the walkie-talkie super tight, watching everything that moved. Sergeant Baker was very alert. Detective Bickerstaff picked the lock, then walked in, flashing his light. He went straight to the bathroom, looking at the Comet cleaner all over the place. He turned the knob on the faucet. Still no water. He shook his head, not understanding who made this mess, Tracy or the killer. He looked over every inch of the bathroom: shower, sink, medicine cabinet, toilet, floor, and ceiling. Not a clue or anything that stood out. Getting ready to leave out of the bathroom, he noticed there was water in the toilet. "Sergeant Baker, I need you to lock the vehicle and bring me the picture of the bathroom," Detective Bickerstaff said through the walkie-talkie. "On my way, Captain." Detective Bickerstaff was trying to remember when they first investigated the house. He's not sure if there was water in the toilet. Sergeant Baker walked up and handed Detective Bickerstaff the pictures. Then Sergeant Baker walked to the bedroom where the dead cat was found. The pictures showed that there was water in the toilet. Detective Bickerstaff was leaning more towards Tracy leaving the mess, but Lefty said she wouldn't. So, if the killer left the mess, did he do it before or after the water was off? Looking at the picture, then back at the actual toilet, Detective Bickerstaff noticed the toilet is the only place that is not completely covered in Comet. He noticed there was no Comet in the water, but all over the seat and in the inside of the bowl. Either way, water was placed there after they initially poured the Comet. Also, the water doesn't look stale. "Sergeant Baker, come here," Detective Bickerstaff yelled. "Yes, Captain." Sergeant Baker stood in the bathroom doorway. "I noticed that the water in the toilet doesn't look that old. Lefty said the water has been off for a few weeks. Also, the way the Comet is poured all over the place is different from the toilet. See how the water doesn't have Comet in it, but there's Comet inside the toilet. How is that possible?" Detective Bickerstaff was puzzled as he pointed to the water in the toilet. Sergeant Baker walked over to the toilet to see what Detective Bickerstaff was saying. He looked all around the toilet. "That is kind of strange, but..." Sergeant Baker stopped midway through his sentence. "When I was younger, I stayed with my grandmother over the Christmas break. My parents went on a ski trip out of town. I remember her pipes freezing. We couldn't use the water at all. My grandmother kept gallon water jugs in the basement for bad weather such as that. She showed me how to flush the toilet without pouring the water directly in the bowl. We poured the water in the back of the toilet, where the water refills after every flush." Sergeant Baker looked at Detective Bickerstaff. Detective Bickerstaff stared at Sergeant Baker, not truly following him. Sergeant Baker put on a second pair of gloves to cover the pair he already had on. He took the lid off the back of the toilet and looked at Detective Bickerstaff. The detective looked over into the back of the toilet, and there was a clear freezer bag floating. Detective Bickerstaff pulled the freezer bag out. He could see a cell phone battery, and a note. He walked the bag into the kitchen and Sergeant Baker followed him. Detective Bickerstaff placed the bag on the kitchen counter. He opened the bag, then took the note out of it. The note was typed on a computer, printed in red capital letters. 1 out of 3 clues so far. That is terrible, but what can I expect from an orphan degenerate? Captain Bickerstaff tighten up, place the battery into the phone, then power it on. The code is 2845 once you get into the phone. Scroll through the apps, then press the home security app. Select camera 9. I have a surprise for you. Tracy should be alive if you found the clue fast enough. Press door unlock on the app and the door will unlock. It will also show you the front and the complete address where she's being detained. Hurry, I do it. Detective Bickerstaff read the note out loud. Then he passed Sergeant Baker the cell phone and battery. Hurry, I do it. You can't even spell idiot fucking loser, Detective Bickerstaff said angrily. He took offense at how the killer addressed him in the note. Sergeant Baker put the battery into the cell phone and pressed the power button. The phone powered on. Detective Bickerstaff showed Sergeant Baker the note. Sergeant Baker entered the code, then he went straight to the apps. It was very intense. You could hear their hearts beating as they tried to follow the instructions from the note. Once he selected camera 9, there she was, Tracy Dillion. their eyes open to the size of silver dollars. She was tied to a chair with her hands behind her back. She had a gag in her mouth with her chin slumped in her chest. You could tell that she was in the dark because the camera was showing night vision image. The detective was unable to tell what type of room she was in because of the camera's position. "Should I proceed?" Sergeant Baker asked. "Definitely. We need to hurry before it's too late. Hopefully she's still—" "No, don't press it." Detective Bickerstaff tried to stop Sergeant Baker, but he was too late. Sergeant Baker already pressed unlock the door. They watched the screen as Tracy Dillion raised her head with her eyes open in fear. She started trying to free herself from the chair. They looked confused, not able to see what she was looking at. The camera never went to the front door. Therefore, no address was shown. Kaboom! The house with the